You're listening to the Flooring Company Marketing Podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping your service-based business grow and thrive using the latest technology in internet marketing. And now, here's the host of our show and the CEO of Grow Inc., Matt Law.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another training episode. Matt Law, CEO and co-founder of Grow Inc. here. Happy to be with you again. Today, we've got a really great episode. We're going to talk about what successful service companies have in common, which allows them to grow so quickly. And over the years of consulting with hundreds of different companies and seeing some companies really grow tremendously, they have some certain traits in common. And what I want to do is talk about the growth-ready service business. And I think it will be very, very helpful. So remember, the series that we are doing on our podcast kind of goes in order. And so we suggest that you start back at the beginning, episode 1, and listen to the training in order, starting with the 4-step marketing formula. And that is our formula for helping companies grow. You'll find it very helpful, very informative, and you can kind of go through these in order. So if you're just starting now, you're welcome to listen to this episode. This is a bonus episode, but you can go through the trainings in order and you can learn more about all the things that go into helping a company like yours grow. A little bit about myself before we get started. My name is Matt Law. At the time of this recording, I'm 48 years old. I am the co-founder and the CEO of Grow Inc. I have an awesome business partner, dear friend, Jeff, who's a tremendous marketer, great at video, project management, and we have a team that helps service businesses grow. A little bit more about myself. One thing I'm noticing is that I'm getting more and more gray hair. And so I will tell you, I've been doing Google Ads since 2001, 24 years with Google Ads. So you can imagine the changes that I've seen. I learned about SEO probably about 2001 as well. And I started learning about that. We actually hired a SEO company in 2004, 2005, spent tens of thousands of dollars on search engine optimization and learned a lot about it. And during this time, we owned a correspondent lending a mortgage company. And so we were a lender in Florida, and we were online doing pay-per-click. We were doing SEO. We had local campaigns. We were expanding. And of course, most of you know how that ended in 2006 and 7 and 8 in Florida with the housing crisis. And so obviously that went bad, but I really found my passion for marketing and growing businesses back then. And I've owned a marketing agency since 2007, almost 20 years now. During that time, I've consulted with well over 200, maybe 300 clients or more. Some of them were startups. Some of them were companies doing hundreds of $1 million in revenue. So a lot of different types of marketing, a lot of different experiences. Obviously, I have some age. So for what it's worth, what I'm sharing with you in these trainings is what I know works, what I've seen work, what I see work in clients today. And so hopefully you find it very, very helpful. So that's a little bit about me. We founded Grow Inc., Jeff and I, to focus and work with service businesses. Now, it's any company that provides a service, but obviously a lot of home service companies we work with. So let's jump into today's training. What companies see growth? What are the key ingredients, the DNA of what that entrepreneur has to see growth? And we're going to dig into that today. I want to start off by telling you that I use an app for travel. It's good if you travel a lot, and I'll share it with you. It's called TripIt. And basically, all of your travel itineraries, you get Wikipedia, American, Delta, whatever your email confirmations, you just forward it from that main account, and it will add it to an itinerary. So when I go and I travel and consult with clients, it's great. I just forward all my reservations, and I can see all my flights. I can see all of the hotel details, all of that. I usually Uber, so I don't have to worry about a car, but it's all in one app. One thing that it's pretty interesting is it will tell you how many miles you traveled. And in 2024, I traveled 21,000 business miles. Think about that, 21,000 business miles. So most of our clients come from our podcast or from our books on Amazon. They're listeners just like you. They schedule a time with us, and sometimes they're not a good fit for our company. And we say, hey, we can't really help you. Sometimes their growth is like they're already doing things right, so we don't take them on. Sometimes we're not a good fit for them, and they're not what they're looking for. They want someone to do piecemeal, which we really don't focus on piecemeal. We try to do everything to help a company grow. And so 21,000 miles last year. I've been all over the U.S. last year with the new projects that we brought on. I mean, in every corner from Detroit, Washington, Arizona, New England, Mid-Atlantic, and Florida. We've had clients from all over. And if I want to go back through the last 17, 18 years of running a marketing agency, I can tell you there are specific things that make a company grow. And there are specific things that owners do that sabotage to keep their growth. It's a lid on their growth. And so today we are talking about who sees success, who struggles and sabotages themselves, who starts to win and then kills it, who doesn't win at all. And so I want to start a little bit with the numbers. So last year, our new clients had growth between 40%, which was the lowest, 40 is like 46. And we had clients that actually doubled their revenues year over year. So this is new clients that came on last year, and now we're a year later. This is their year over year growth. And the economy wasn't great in 2024. So to see our minimum client grow by, I think it was 46%, and with our top client growing by over 100%. For us, that is exciting. That's why we do what we do. We want to see companies grow. That's why we called our company Grow Inc. And so for our existing clients, we also saw continued growth between 20 to 40%, depending on what stage of growth they're at and how much market saturation they have. So they had all of our clients experienced tremendous growth, with the exception of just one client who did not stay on very long. And I'll kind of expound on that as we go. So all of our clients, with the exception of one company, saw tremendous growth. And in today's episode, I want to talk about the DNA of the companies who won, really the entrepreneur like you who won. And I also want to compare that to the last 18 years of owning marketing agencies. And I'll share about the companies that I've seen fail as well. So are you an ideal company for growth? Are you going to see success? I don't know. But here's the thing that I think the ideal growth companies have. First of all, they have to have a deep desire to keep searching for answers. And what causes that is that they have tried before and they have failed. They've tried to grow and they failed. And it's this internal thing inside of every entrepreneur that says, no, there has to be a way. I've got to be able to figure this out. And so what I find for ideal growth clients is that they are continually learning, they are continually reading, they are researching, they are looking for things, one, to feed information, but they're also have taken some risks and it hasn't worked out. So a lot of times the ideal growth clients that we take on, they have worked with agencies and they've also tried to do Google ads themselves. Maybe they've even hired staff and they've done things and it just isn't working the right way. So they are willing to try new things and a lot of it has failed. And there comes a tipping point where people, I see they get sick and tired of either piecemealing it with an agency where one agency does SEO, one does pay-per-click, they got someone in-house doing social media, or they're fooling with Google ads themselves and managing their Google business location. And it's just not working. But the problem is there's a frustration there that they've tried it and it's not working, but yet they're spending money. And so they're done with trying to hack it and they are looking for a real solution. And what I know is that most of you guys that are listening, you know about Google Ads, you know about SEO, you get 1,000 emails about what to do and Instagram and all of these different things. And you know a lot, but you just don't have the right system, team, or plan in place to make it happen. But there's a desire that's deep to want that. And what I'll give you an example is, and really rule number one for us is that the heart of the entrepreneur has to be ready for growth. And in many cases, our clients have hired multiple agencies before us. We actually are thankful if they do that, because in when we take on a new client, if they've never worked with an agency, it's hard for them to even compare what we do and what a grow partnership is versus, working with an agency. And so we literally do all of the things that are in our podcast. So if you listen to all of our trainings and kind of go through that, all the things that we do, most of the cases we can do all of that for less money than what a lot of agencies charge. And it's just because of our business model and the way our pricing is structured, our overhead. And so if you listen to the podcast and you say, man, that's a lot of ideas, we actually implement all of this for clients. And a lot of times it's less than what they're paying an agency. Sometimes it's a little bit more, but it just depends. But they get so much more value. So it's actually better if somebody has actually tried working with another agency and it just hasn't worked, because that shows that they are still searching for answers. They're looking for solutions, and they're challenging that what they are paying is not working. And then when they usually listen into our training, or they read our book, or they go through their 2-day consultation, we have a solid plan in place. And once they're at that broken point where they're done with the old agency and they're ready to try something new, that's when it triggers. In contrast, I should say, if someone has never hired an agency before or done any marketing, they've never struggled, they're not ready to push the needle and to grow in most cases, because they have nothing to compare a growth plan like what we suggest versus, just doing SEO or just doing some meta ads. So step number one is, are they ready? Is their heart ready for growth? And you're like, whatever, man, I get that. Of course, we're ready for growth. And I get that, because that's probably why you're listening. But the first thing I just bring up is that there has to be a frustration or a pain point for someone to say, there's got to be a better way. I got to fight for this. There's got to be a different solution, which is what leads people to keep learning, keep reading books and things like that. So more than likely, you're already on that right path. The second thing is, you may have a huge desire to grow. You may have ability to learn. You may be passionate. You may be just knowledgeable and driven and a good leader. But number two is that they have to have capital to invest. And so the ideal growth client understands number one, hey, there's pain and I want to get over this and fight for it. But they got to have money to invest, and they understand that growth costs money, and they have a budget set aside. So when we kind of interview our prospects and they fill out the application, we ask about growth budget, and of course we know budget isn't unlimited, but even if we charge nothing for our service, we didn't charge a penny for all of the work we've done, there's still a cost to Google Ads. There's a cost to building citations and getting people to do backlinks. There's a cost for social media automation. There's a cost for ad spend and all of the things that go into growth. So it's really simple. It takes money to grow. And again, if we didn't charge you a penny, there are still expenses, with your content writers, the hosting, all of these things take money. And I don't think you have to spend a lot. I think a lot of clients spend less in their budget than we even expect, but it takes money to make money. And you have to start off where you're at, but most companies should be spending, if they want to grow, at least 10% of their revenues into marketing to scale that growth. And as you grow and you get referrals and there's all these other things that we build into the campaign, referral campaigns, thank you campaigns, all of these things, then you can actually spend less in marketing because your revenues are going to grow. And usually the second, third, fourth year, they don't have to spend as much. But companies have to have capital to invest. That is a critical thing. And in contrast, if a company is tight on cash flow, I mean, they don't have savings, they have overinflated their success to say, oh, we've got all this money, we're so successful. And then it comes time to implement a marketing plan in the early days when they're buying links and they are investing in citations for their Google business and they're investing in the content of their website and they're spending, say, $7,000, $10,000 to scale, and they don't have those savings in place or that capital really to invest, or they've overinflated how good they are, they will crack under the pressure. Like, it starts out fine. Yeah, Matt, whatever we got to do to grow, let's just do it. And then it changes to, why are we spending money on this? When are we going to see this return? When am I going to, and it just changes, because you have to understand growth is a process and healthy things grow. And when you build something healthy, it will grow. And so number one, a company has to be ready for growth and have the frustration. Number two, they have to have the capital to invest. And number three, we are going to get into the heart of this and the DNA of trust and entrepreneurship. Number three is they have to have the ability to trust others, not only just our team, but other people on their team. When someone is not willing to trust and let things go, they almost never can scale their business because they are micromanagers. And I want to talk through this for just a couple of minutes. But when you build a marketing strategy and a growth plan, and you got to have a team in place, it's impossible to think that you can do it all on your own without having a great team in place that you empower to do that. So great entrepreneurs that grow, they build a team and they trust their team. They empower their team. There's a unity in the vision and the plan, and they focus on empowering others to do a great job, not controlling them. Now, listen, I know you're an entrepreneur. I know you are driven. I know you're listening to this because you want to win, and I get it. But when an entrepreneur can't trust anyone, like they second guess everything, there's a huge lid on their growth because they will try to do everything themselves. And I want to break this down for you. Whenever we meet with our growth clients, we spend 2 days with them. And by that time, I've already spent usually 3 hours in meetings with them before the 2 days. They have gone through our podcast audios. They have gone through our reading book. They have talked to some of our other clients. We have spent so much time with a client before they go into contract. Their contract outlines detailed objectives, the number of articles, the website, the video, the ads, the campaigns. I mean, it's 26 to 28 objectives that are what we call our big rocks. And then as we build the campaign, our new system, as tasks are completed, there's notifications. Every single dollar that is invested in wholesale marketing is added to their Grow Inc. account. There is constant communication, monthly updates. We track all the KPIs, and more than all of this, we give monthly updates to track leads and all of that. So there is transparency, there is authenticity into what we can do. But what happens when a company doesn't trust the process and there's a breakdown? Well, whenever there's suspicion of growth, and this is not just for working with a marketing company like us or a marketing partner like us, whenever there is suspicion, it slows things down dramatically. So what you don't realize is that if you are suspicious of your employees constantly, you don't trust them, you don't trust anyone, it slows things down dramatically because they feel like they're walking on eggshells. And really, this is one of those things that Jeff and I have been talking about recently, is like, we have to find the right clients who have clarity on the vision, clarity on the plan, so they can trust us to do the things that we've said without all this constant suspicion. And it doesn't happen very often. Once every few years, we may have a client that slips through the crack that is really suspicious, not trusting at all. And then all of a sudden things unravel really, really quick because there's no progress on that project because everything then takes longer. Like you give a logo, say, hey, well, here's an example on a design. No, I want this. And so a logo that should take just a few days to get done ends up taking weeks and pushes everything back. Every word on the website takes weeks. Oh, we got to change this. We got to change this. And it's perfectionism, but really it's control of the business owner who wants to control it, which it's their right to control. But what happens is they then have a job to manage everybody else. And as a entrepreneur, your job isn't to just manage everyone. Your job should be to find the right people, to put them in that spot to do their job, and then not have to worry about it. But for the controlling, business owner that has to control everything, they will always be limited by growth. And here's why: they're going to have turnover with their marketing agencies. They're going to have turnover with their staff. Their staff is going to feel untrusted. Their staff isn't going to be empowered to do their job. And what I see is whenever we have a business owner like that, there's a huge lid on their growth. And what's interesting is that when people are untrusting, a lot of times they don't have great character to be trustworthy themselves. And it's interesting is that, and as I think through, years of clients that, obviously 99% great, but 1 in 100 that there'll be bumps or just tension there. As I've looked through that, there's been things that they have said to us, and I'm look back and says, I'm talking about the times that I felt like, hey, there's no trust here. Their lives lacked character and trust. I've caught them doing things that lacked integrity. And I don't want to go into all of the details, but as I think back through the ideal person for growth, they are not them because they don't trust. And here's what I would just encourage you, business owner. Hey, listen, I'm not trying to get you to hire me. I wouldn't be saying this podcast, like this would not be a something I would share in a podcast to try to get you to hire us. I'm trying to tell you as a business owner, your job isn't to micromanage and know everything about marketing, about what your reception does. Your job is to empower them and find the right people. If you cannot trust them, you never should have hired them, right? And so with our process, we kind of lay out all that we're going to do, try to have total transparency and all of that. And I just say sometimes to the business owner, listen, I've been doing this, since 2001. Right. I know things about Google Ads that I can't even mention and share with you. Like there's so much reason of why we do something, or with SEO, or with social media sharing. Like I share a lot in our podcast, but I know more about marketing usually in my pinky finger than most business owners do. It's because that's what I do. It's our specialized. And I don't mean that arrogantly. I just mean if you can't trust those people on your team, then you're never going to empower them and you're going to hold them back. And so I think about our clients that win big. Most of them, they allow us the freedom to try new things. And I think about one of our clients, his name is Bill. Fantastic, 4 years of growth. He's grown by 500%. We do stuff for his account all the time to add new stuff. And I just say, hey, is it okay if we try this? He says, yes. I says, this is how much it's going to cost. And we'll try it. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it does. But here's the thing, we measure it all, but he gets the benefit of new things being tried all the time because he trusts us. He's willing for us to go to bat for him. So recapping really quick, number one, their heart is ready for growth. Number two, they have the capital to invest. Number three, they have the ability to trust and let things go. And some of you listen to this, you're like, Matt, I want to let things go. And I get that, but that is the right heart to say, hey, find your partner, find your team, find your staff, find that agency, whatever it is, so that you can rest at night and you can let things go. So let's jump on to the next one is they understand their own numbers. So if you are going to grow, you have to know your deal size, your profit margins, your closing rate, right? They have to be realistic also about what it takes to acquire a customer. So what I find is when companies don't really know their margins, and they don't really know what it takes, they're not willing to invest in the marketing to grow. Most of you know your margins, and you probably have some sort of spreadsheet or something out there, or your CRM that kind of manages all that. But I've met companies sometimes that are like, yeah, I want to be, I want to hit $50 million in the next few years. I want to scale, I want to grow. And they have great big plans, right? But meanwhile, they're starting at probably barely over $1 million in revenue. They're really immature. There's no team, there's no staff, like there's nothing in place. Maybe a small team and doing $1 million. And so they're like, hey, whoa, I can't spend $500 on this. I can't spend $500 on this website video, or I can't spend this capital on this, not realizing what the average cost per customer is. And so if your average job is worth X amount of dollars and they give you referrals, then that number goes up. If they do multiple projects with you, that number goes up as well. And so you have to know what the lifetime value of the customer is. They have to really know their numbers, and it has to make sense to them that, hey, this investment is worth it because in the long run, it is going to pay off for if I invest. Same with Google ads or, local service ads or Bing ads, which are on the Microsoft and Yahoo network. Like there's lots of channels, if you're investing in meta advertising, remarketing, retargeting, email campaigns, referral campaigns, they all work together. And if you don't know your ROI, it won't make sense. So one of the things we usually do for clients is we'll do print marketing folders, which is like a leave behind, has our unique selling points in there. And like with our wholesale printer, you can get 1,000 of these books for like $1,500. I can't spend $1,500 for 1,000 books, business cards, magnets. These things are loaded and they're beautiful and they're thick. And when you leave them, it sets you apart. For most people, if they just got 1 or 2 extra deals a year from their leave behind, it would pay for that. But people are like, I can't spend that. And now they don't understand return on investment. So business owners got to know their margins, their numbers. This helps them know how much they can spend to grow. And this is something that we kind of do. So as a company is onboarded, we have to figure out their return on investment for all of their marketing. So that includes Google ad spend, local service ads. And that's why measuring marketing is so important. In contrast, when a company doesn't really know their ROI and their numbers, and they're kind of like, let's grow, but it's vague, they're not going to be willing to spend. They just want to hit this big number, but they don't realize there's a process to get there, and they just don't get it. So listen, I know that I'm not the only person you probably listen to on your podcast. There's a bunch of gurus that are in your industry. And these gurus started 3 years ago, right? And now they're doing X millions of dollars. They're selling a course. But what they don't tell you, the gurus don't tell you, is the millions of dollars they spent to hit those numbers. They spent millions of dollars in ads to be successful, because there is no shortcuts in life. There's no shortcuts in marketing. And so in the 4-step marketing approach, it's very holistic. It's every best practice. And what I from time to time, I'll hear these conversations or have these conversations, and I kind of chuckle because they're like, hey, there's this one thing that you can do, this one hack, and it's this type of ad, or it's a video reel, or it's a meta post, or it's Google local. And they put, oh, hey, this is what they did, and this is what we need to do. They'll say to me, and I say, hey, that's part of the marketing strategy. I agree. That's the number one thing we've got to do. That's the only thing we need to do. And what they don't understand is every market is different, right? Every situation's different. They may be in a different type of business. They may have bought a company and grew it, and it already had an established reputation. or they could actually maybe be onto something that is a good thing. Even if it is a good thing, the thing is you can have all of your eggs in one basket. And here's what I will tell you. Google loves to make changes on SEO. Google loves to make changes on local rankings in the map section. Meta loves to change the types of ads you can run and the different types of targeting. Everything in marketing changes, and you can't have your eggs all in one basket. So you have to know your numbers. You have to be willing to invest in those things that give you ROI, but it also needs to be a balanced approach. So recapping again, heart ready for growth, right? Capital to invest, the ability to trust, understanding your numbers, and then the last one is that you have to have the capacity to handle the growth. Are you ready to handle more leads, more jobs, more sales? You ready to handle the extra chaos that comes with it? And so I see operational capacity as super important. These are good leaders, and you need to be a good leader. And when you think about that, you have to have your team together. You have to have things prepped and ready for grow. And this kind of goes back to the trust. Healthy teams mean healthy growth. If your team hates their job, maybe they hate you, maybe they don't like their boss, they're not going to want you to win. They're not going to work harder and follow up with leads to help your company win. And so they're not going to follow up. And it's important to know that growth isn't overnight, but more exposure equals more leads and more calls. Healthy things grow. And so mentally, companies must have a plan to grow in place. And I've met with companies that want to expand so fast, and sometimes they've expanded and they've grown, and they've got really great success and they've grown really quickly, and it brings a tremendous amount of stress to the business owner. One of the things we're going to be doing here in the next few months is I'm going to have some of our clients on to share their stories and do some interviews with them so they can talk about their growth from, doubling to, 3, 4, 500%. I would love to bring them on and just hear their story. But one thing I will tell you is that in the middle of growth, it's really, really busy. It's really, really heavy. And they have had to be prepared for that growth. Now, I'm not saying go out and spend money, right? I'm not saying go and rent an office. I've had clients that have rented offices and done all these things, and I never told them to do that. I said, hey, be prepared for growth and have a plan for growth, but you don't want to go and spend overhead until you need that. You don't spend all these things and buy computers and hire staff and all that and say, hey, we're going to grow. No, as you grow, your growth drives the expansion, not expansion driving the growth. So I think those are some of the most important things that I want to share. And I think obviously the most important thing is, are you willing to commit to the long run, the long-term growth? When I share marketing, marketing is so full of hype anyway, right? And I try to, whenever I meet with clients, I try to show like, hey, here's where they're ranking locally. Here's where they're ranking. Here's their ROI. Here's the number of leads. And so we have some clients, in the last couple of months generated 170 new leads, over the last couple of months. Large amounts of leads, lots of people to follow up. And this is through multiple channels, from Meta, through, Angie, from Google Ads, from organic, like a lot of different places. And they've got all of these leads. So when I show that, it's important to know you are starting from wherever your business is starting. So maybe you're going to get a new website, but do you have any links? Do you have good rankings locally? What's good about your business? And depending on where you're starting, depends on how long it's going to take you to grow. And also one thing I've kind of learned is that when are you launching? Are you launching your growth plan at the middle of low season, right? Middle of like the summer when it's dead, or are you launching it at the peak? And so when you launch, where you launch from, your industry, your geolocation, all of those things play an important role. And so you have to be willing to commit for the long run, right? There is no shortcuts in growth. There is doing the right things over and over, treating your customers well, getting reviews every day, adding to your website, making improvements, monetizing your ads, like cutting out waste, improving all of the things that we talk about in our training, doing those right over time. And what I can tell you is last year for new clients, that resulted in major growth. Some companies doubled. Some company, our minimum growth for a client was 40, I think it's 42, 44%, but it's substantial growth. And by the way, the company that grew by 40% had 16 straight months of declining revenues before we started working with them. So if you've listened to our podcast and you hear this holistic approach to marketing, it's the best practices for SEO, PPC, follow-up, unique selling points, measurable marketing. It's a step-by-step implementation. And each year, as we help a company hit their goals and win, that next year we add, we meet up, and we plan out new locations. Is there a different area we're going to add? New services, more ad spend? There's a lot. But if a company expects to get rich overnight, they don't understand the process. They are looking to hack their way to growth. They're looking for a hack. And again, the gurus say, hey, do X and this will happen. But that's why it's good to remember every situation is different. You're in a different market, a different business, and you don't have an unlimited budget for ads. And so your situation is different. And by the way, I don't suggest you put all your eggs in one basket, like YouTube, Meta, whatever the gurus are saying. Last month, we had a client who did a ton of leads on Meta. I think it was like an extra 40 leads or something like that. Those were big numbers for their leads. But what's interesting, their ROI on those leads was less than it was on Google for the same ad spend. That's why it's super important that you measure your ROI. So those are some realistic things that I look at business owners to see who is going to be successful, who would be an ideal growth partner to work with. Do they have the right mindset going into this? And just to recap, like they've already tried things before and it hasn't worked. And so they're ready. Their heart is ready for growth. They've got capital to invest. All right. And I'm not talking about getting in debt and risking your home or something like that to do a marketing campaign. They have capital to invest, and they understand slow and steady, slowly gaining on competitors, gaining market share. They have the great ability to trust and let go. Of course, they want accountability. Of course, we want a clear plan. Of course, we want transparency, but they're building a team of staff members. It's not just the marketing guy. It's your staff. Does your staff feel trusted and empowered? Are they excited about it? Does that business owner know their numbers, the ROI, understand what it means to spend, to grow and gain new customers? Do they understand the lifetime value of their customer? Do they have this capacity to handle the growth? Are they prepared? Is their team ready? Is there a plan for growth in place? And are they committed to the long run? And if someone thinks success happens overnight, what I find is that they end up sabotaging the entire process. And I've seen companies have some big wins, and then they're like, hey, we want more. And over the years, we've even parted ways with a couple of companies because of unrealistic expectations and said, hey, we're not a good fit because we're winning. And then it's funny is sometimes we've had them come back because they didn't realize how much we were doing to really impact. And so I say that there are always bumps in growth. You read a guru and he says, yeah, it's great. Here's what we did. We went from this to this. And that's all you hear, but you don't realize the fight and the struggle to get there. Marketing, another word for marketing is testing. It's messy. And so, yeah, sometimes there's bugs. Sometimes there's typos. Sometimes there is penalties and changes and delays. And sometimes it's fixing what another company has done to your website or your marketing. There's a lot of things, but you hear the gurus say, hey, we just did this. And then, hey, look where we're at. And I will tell you, yeah, if you have deep pockets, go spend tons of money on television ads, go ahead and you'll grow. Spend a lot of money. But for most entrepreneurs, they're not ready to drop $1 million in Google ads and TV overnight, because really that's not wise anyway, because you're not measuring it. Here's the thing. Most people are bootstrapping. They're fighting. They're step by step. And I will say on every marketing campaign, when I bring some guys on to interview, there's been bumps, there's been delays, but there's a commitment to the process, to the journey. So I want to wrap up and just share a couple common questions that I get. And, should my company be growing? And I think really what people ask us sometimes is like, is every client growing? And my answer is yes. We only take on clients that we believe we can help grow. And so we have kind of a qualification process to ensure that we get the right companies. And there's a lot of work done on the back end. And so part of it is our application, but then we have some other screening stuff that we've just added. And I've kind of gone through it with you, what the ideal growth company looks like. And so we look for specific things, but it's more than that. We have to look for companies that have bad marketing, and they got to reach out and say, hey, this is what we've done and it's still bad. And we run their analytics, we run their local, we look at their ranking, we look at their application, we look at their competitors, so all these checklists of all these questions that we kind of go through to make sure they're a good fit and that we can help them win. And basically, I know if they do all of the things, these best practices, they can't help but grow because it's the best practice. And so, yes, everyone grows, but we also say no to some prospects and some customers that we think, hey, we're just not a good fit. So here's a question, Matt, you want to grow, but you look at what I'm saying and you don't have the capital, you're not ready. Maybe your company's too small. What do I do now? So what if you're not ready? So I would say wait and do the right things now, like learn from the podcast, hire some freelancers, keep growing, keep getting better, do what you can personally, focus on the things that we share in our training and get better little by little. And then when the time is right and you can afford it and you've got some success or you got some savings, then bring on somebody else, bring on an agency, bring on a partner, a growth partner like Growing to help. But you've got to just do what you can right now to try to make things a little bit better. Everyone wants success overnight. Of course, we're all entrepreneurs. We want to be successful overnight. But here's what we need to do. We need to do the right thing today, the best thing today that will make our tomorrows better. And so I want to close out the podcast. It's like sometimes people say, Matt, you're mixing marketing with leadership and business. And I've owned companies since, 1999. And so I'm going to share, if you're younger than me, hopefully this will be helpful. You say, Matt, what can I do to improve? I want to share with you 2 books that really impacted me. And 2 books that I just recently read as part of a group study. And I think they'll be very, very helpful to you. And they're both by the name of a gentleman by the name of John Maxwell. You may have heard of him. 2 leadership books, and they're dated now, 21 Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell, and the 21 Qualities of a Leader by John Maxwell. So just remember 21, John Maxwell. You can go on Amazon, and these books are principles about how to lead better, right? And the other principles in that are what the quality of your character should be. And I think as I meet entrepreneurs that are good leaders, and they have character and the qualities of a leadership, of a good leader, and they study leadership, their companies naturally grow faster. It's hard to even imagine and explain, but when they have the character and the heart of a leader, they grow so much faster. So I hope you pick up those 2 books and you find them helpful. In 2020, I wrote a book called The Entree Spirit. You can also find this on Amazon. And the title of the book is called The Entree Spirit, the DNA of Self-Starters and People Who Get Things Done. And in the book, it's a fable, which is a story book, but it's a business book as well. It's a book where I talk about what the DNA of successful people are have. And so as I ran an agency as well, we had a training company where I trained over 400 entrepreneurs about marketing, how to be consultants and run marketing businesses as well. And this is based on the study of not just the guys I trained and the students that I trained in marketing, but also the countless clients that I've worked with. And so if you want to pick up a copy of the Entre Spirit, you can find that as well. Hopefully you'll find it very, very helpful. I think that's it for this bonus episode with Grow Inc. today. And if you'd like, remember, you can check out our free resources at www.grow.inc. We've got a comprehensive marketing book for your industry. Also have it in audio format, professionally recorded. There's checklists and there is a do-it-yourself marketing plan list. So you can go to www.grow.inc to request your free resources. If you'd like to set up a time to chat about how we could partner to help your business grow, you can do that once you request our free resources as well. That said, thank you for listening. I hope you have an awesome day, and we wish you the best of success in the future.
Thanks for listening to the podcast today. We hope you found today's episode helpful and informative. For more information about Grow Inc. and to request our free marketing blueprint ebook and other resources, please visit www.grow.inc. That's GRO.inc. We'll catch you in the next episode.